The speaker you're going to hear next here on the stage is going to be Karina Popova. Maybe some of them know of her. She's the head of development at Link Mobility, and she's in the board of directors of Women in Tech, Global Women in Tech. Karina is actually a very known speaker. She's been doing this for a very long time. She's the speaker with the Trust of the Audience Award in 2016. And she's been working as development lead last 10 years. She's great in communication. You're going to see her in leadership skills, developed both in private sector and working with government institutions. And I think you're going to see that one of the most interesting things she's going to talk to you about, as is the theme of her speech, politicization of non-political events, a geospatial analysis. So we're going to take like just a minute as rearranging the scene, and then I'm going to ask of you to give a big round of applause for these guys and for Karina, who's next.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Not so many people, but hope some will join us during the talk. I highly appreciate that you're all right now here, and it's already my third time in Cluj on Dev Talks, and I'm very honored to be there because the audience is usually very smart and very well educated, so I expect some nice discussions afterwards, after my talk. So today I will talk about, it sounds a bit complicated, the politicization of non-political event, but basically it's a geospatial analysis of Twitter content during the FIFA World Cup. So my name is Karina Popova, and this talk prepared especially for Dev Talks Cluj. It's the first time for this talk, and I'm a developer and system engineer lead for the last 12 years. I'm also an international speaker, and I'm a member of Global Women Community in Tech. And my primary topics in last years were IoT and then AI, and this year I'm moving more in blockchain. I live in Hamburg, Germany, and I have about 10,000 followers on LinkedIn, in professional network, so you're also welcome to join and read some articles. On the web you can find me on karinapopova.me. Also, tweets are very welcome, and you can anytime contact me. For people who like numbers, I'm 28 years old. I have 3 master's degrees in economics, informatics, and geospatial technologies, and more than 20 years of studying. This summer will be 12 years how I have a full-time work experience, and I traveled to 64 countries. I'm really waiting for the 65th. So let's start with our kind of a game. And we will start with how actually JS can connect with politics and social media. As you see, JS is a central component, and it's a very useful tool for actually to do an analysis on the social media, on the data which is streaming from social media. And it's not a new technology or something, because governments have been using JS for many years, and there's the largest group of users because they really want to understand the voting results, for example. They do a campaign planning with JS. They often do election districts maps where you can see exactly which candidate is going to win in which district, and these maps usually look like a battle map because everyone wants to get in another region and to win there. And political analysis is also a very interesting tool because it can help to analyze social trends and public opinion. And if you do it right, you can really influence the public opinion and influence the decision-making process for some politicians. And the social media, we know that people really love to put likes and dislikes on different topics and different blogs and social websites like Twitter and Facebook, for example. And it shows us behavior of public. So when we put all of this together, we decided to do the research, and we had some hypotheses. One of them was that non-political event, any big sport event, can become political event through the social media. So it was just a hypothesis, and we wanted to, at the end, to prove it. To see if we can prove it or not. And another one was that social media data has some specific statistical and spatial characteristics which can actually give us a clue about public opinion in a specific time frame. So we choose one of the most popular events as a World Cup 2014, which happened in Brazil. And we thought, okay, it's just a sport event, but what it brings with it. So politics also play a main role because there are lots of large-scale constructions. It affects not only capital, but lots of cities in the country. They build new stadiums, they do they change infrastructure. So new roads, facilities, accommodation. And if we apply to all this data, geographical and statistical analysis, if we combine it, we can actually understand the nature of the event, what people are talking about during the event. In our case, we choose Twitter. And why did we choose Twitter? Because every day when you watch TV, mainly all the TV channels, they already have some relation to any government authorities, and it's already being influenced by them, and you can understand which news were allowed to be public, which are not. And Twitter is more about real social interaction for people. We also analyzed the second part of mass media and how politicians were used World Cup in their speeches, but today I would like to present you just a Twitter analysis. So this was the methodology, how we start working. So first, of course, we need to extract the content. Then we need to work on, to clean the data, basically. Then we use some data mining techniques to understand what keywords were specifically political oriented. And then we did a data analysis where we will see the results. Was the World Cup a political event or not? So why did we choose this event? Because when it was announced in 2003 that Brazil will have a World Cup, it was immediate a public reaction in Brazil that they don't have enough money and they don't have enough stadiums and it will crush their economic. And during the whole time till 2014, for more than 10 years, people were talking about, there were protests against the financial reports, against the government, and they really want even to elect a new government just before the World Cup to reduce the expenses, because they said that it was highly corrupted. But the event includes 32 countries, and the main hashtags were World Cup and Brazil 2014. This was also the main hashtags we used to gather the data. And till now, some of these events were the most watched events, sport events. For example, the opening game just in Brazil has been watched by 43 million people, which is like 1/4 of all population of Brazil. The same happened for the first Japanese game. 34 million people watch it, which is also 1/4 of all population in Japan, which means that every fourth person was watching it, and it's amazing. And also, social networks beat all the records. And for example, only the first opening game, Brazil and Chile, between Brazil and Chile, generated about 16 million tweets just in 2 hours on Twitter. And by first 2 weeks, there were already 1 billion interactions on Facebook about World Cup, which is a massive amount of data. Yes, so how did we start? We start basically the World Cup JSON project, where we collected all tweets between June 6th and July 14th using the Twitter streaming API. And our selection were mainly based on two hashtags, the main hashtags, World Cup and Brazil 2014. And also we had a second file which includes just all official information about all location of the game, about names of the countries who played, what was the final result of the game, who was the winner. And then we start with a real work, which was a data preparation. So from these 82 million tweets which we collected, we need to do first a mission of the retweets, because of course people would retweet the same information again and again. And it was easily done with R scripting, and we just excluded all tweets starting with the known abbreviation RT. Then we wanted to see all geotagged tweets, and we just exclude all tweets which had null values in latitude and longitude. And then we did a language detection. And it was very interesting why we choose this language, English and Spanish, because it's one of the main languages for Twitter. Almost, as you can see, almost 89% of all tweets were in English and Spanish. Then the Portuguese language were chosen because it's a language for the host country. In Brazil, they speak Portuguese. The German language was chosen because German won the tournament, and it would be interesting to see how they react on the whole World Cup. And the Russian language was chosen not because I'm originally Russian, but because the next World Cup, which will be this summer, will be in Russia, so it would be nice to see how they prepare themselves to the World Cup. Of course, there were some data limitations, as you see, and we have to talk about it. It's in any research. So not every tweet, of course, had a geotagged information. There were a really high proportion of retweets of the same, with the same hashtags and information, especially when someone scored a goal. Some tweets were just goal, and that's all, with hashtag World Cup, which does not give us any idea. Also, of course, we have to tell that not everyone who tweets put a hashtag World Cup and Brazil 2014. They can put a hashtag of the popular football player, so of course its tweets would not be included. And only a small portion of course, of spectators using Twitter. So we need to understand these limitations, that this research was done specifically on the people who use Twitter and use an official hashtags. So the next step was very interesting because we finally start to analyze our data. And we want to find some keywords which has the highest frequency. And also we want to find a limited set of these relevant terms and see if any of these are political oriented or just football oriented. So at the beginning, the data looks like a real mess, but we use a key mean algorithm to cluster all the data. It means that we divide all the data on endpoints, and we try to, the research was done in RapidMiner software, and they try to cluster the words, keywords together, and it's done and again, all these interactions, they minimize the distance between the centroid word, for example, as politics, and the word as elections, which is getting closer to this topic. And at the end, with Tableau software, we get this, it's just a nice representation, what was the main words from 82 million tweets. You can see that which words were used more. And it provides us a useful idea about what people tweet about. And it's very nice to see that political here is one of the main words which you would never think about. So after cleaning the data, we go, and this is the amount of words per language, how much times they were appearing in tweets. So we choose 12 terms, which is soccer, championship, FIFA, and goal, which were strongly football-oriented. We choose 4 words which is in between different topics, like game, victory, profit, and budget. That could have any positive or negative when we do a sentiment analysis, and strong political terms as elections, policy, power, and changes. Again, in 5 different languages. And now we are going to interesting part, which is data analysis. So we will do a statistical analysis, a spatial analysis, and a sentimental analysis of all this data. So let's start with English tweets, and there are really lots of information on one slide, but you can see that primary relocation was for English tweets in US and in Europe. Also, there were some points like South Africa or Asia. The behavior of all tweets was like sport, and then it's moved to politics. On this pie chart, you can see that the strongly oriented political tweets is actually 47% from 82 million. And on the graph, you can see on when political tweets appeared. At the beginning, people talk a lot, and then every time when, for example, England gets eliminated, there is a peak, or US gets eliminated. So the moment when your team gets eliminated, your tweets are getting more political character rather than football or sport orientation. So we decided to see the same about if Spanish tweets are the same. Here you see that they shared all the mix. So football and politics were about the same amount, but you can see, of course, mostly tweets came from South America, and they talk a lot about sport at the beginning. But when the Spanish teams gets eliminated, as you see, for example, Chile, Uruguay, Mexico, the moment when they get eliminated or they're losing their games, this is the peaks of tweets which are politically oriented. And especially at the end when Argentina finally lost to Germany, I think it was one of the biggest amount. Then we talk about Portuguese tweets, which came mainly from Brazil, and you see that there were no even mixed topics. It's like just strongly oriented, you can see on this chart, football topics or politics. And behavior was all the time politics. And this graph, it has actually a different scale. So if on the first graphs we talked about 100, 200 tweets, here you see thousands. And you can see that also peaks happened when Brazil or Portugal lost their games. And which give us a clear view that the political oriented tweets happens when the game gets eliminated. Then we decided to see German tweets because Germany won the whole tournament. Do they speak about politics? Yes, they do, 25%, but you can see that 55% were strongly football-oriented tweets. They talk a lot about goal, victory, and at the end, they start talking about politics, but more, the main keyword was power. So they use the word power as like, we won the tournament, we're a powerful country. So also in sentimental analysis, you will see that it had a positive, these tweets had a positive character rather than negative. And the Russian tweets, this is one of the first, which would sound weird in the current political situation, but it was only 6% about politics. The 54% was about budget, planning, game, mainly because they're supposed to have the next World Cup, so they were more focused on the spendings rather than on real political situation inside the country. But at the same moment, you see at the beginning, they speak about sport, and then when Russia gets eliminated, you see all these politics topics. So the yellow sign when Russia got eliminated, and then we start discuss. But mainly budgets and changes. Changes also includes building new stadiums Then would be, we will quickly look at words, we choose only 4 words which were politically oriented as power, election, changes, and politics. And you see that these politically oriented tweets came mainly from, as we looked from the previous slides, also from US, South America, and Europe. And you can see on this chart clearly that the amount of tweets which include politics increases, especially the words, the blue ones, you can see the blue, the highest one, is politics. And the same, the green one is also power at the end. So, words by words, very quick. Elections. They talk a lot at the beginning because they wanted to elect a new government in Brazil, and there were lots of protests, and they wanted to change the system. And so we see that elections, the main location, the word came from Brazil, and the main language is Portuguese. And you see the increasing trend at the end because people were not satisfied inside the country. Then the changes. People talk about the changes in all South America, also how it affects economics. The primary language was Spanish, and you also see the increasing trend at the end. When your team gets eliminated, you start talking about which changes it brings to your country and how you can improve. The word power is mainly from US and Europe, like Germany and UK also. The primary language was English, and you also see a strong trend. And just before the last games, came really lots of German tweets about the power. And the word politic. So even if we do just analysis on this word, you can see the increasing trend and happened all over the world. We also done a sentiment analysis, and I just want to show you shortly, because this is where you can analyze. It's a special function which can analyze is a tweet had a positive character, or is a tweet had a positive character or negative. If the person means something bad or something good. There is a special technique, and you can do it in rapid manner, and you just quickly can see that everything what is red or pink, it was negative tweets about politics, and everything what is blue, what is green, sorry, it had a more positive character. So this research, it would be nice to do it more deep, but just to give you an impression that on different sides of our planet, the same tweets had just a different character. And so our game is almost finished, so some conclusions. First of all, about where people talk about politics. We can, if you see on the map, it happened all around the world. Mainly, of course, in US, Europe, and South America, but there are really lots of tweets coming from Japan, Asia, Singapore. Like, you can see lots of countries who love football. They always tweet it, and they have a political orientation. Also, another conclusion, actually, non-political event. When we thought about World Cup, it's just a big event which has no any political connection at the beginning, we thought, and there is the only intention it has is just to serve the football tournament. And if we look at the definition of political event, it's something what is done by politicians to serve a political purpose or to promote a political candidate. And there are really different aspects, like temporal spatial, where we see that World Cup officially moving from a sport event to a political event because of the budget topics, about the new reconstructions. And another thing is that actually World Cup is being politicized by spectators and fans, because we start talking about politics when the team gets eliminated. And this nice table shows us finally all the conclusions that in 4 languages, English, Spanish, Portuguese, and German, on the stage 3, which was the final stage, the main topic which people tweet about was political changes, or just changes in the country, power, policy, and only in Russia, as I told, there was more budget topics, but it's understandable because the next FIFA World Cup going to be in Russia. And at the end, as a conclusion, that it would be nice to do this research on any other sport events, and that real-time information can actually be as a sensor for us, what public opinion thinks about politics, what changes do we need. And yeah, I hope you enjoy my talk and you get some interesting insights which you can share with your friends, or you can implement some of these techniques on your future research. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention.
Karina, let's see if maybe anybody has any questions before. Do you have questions for her? For what she does, for the presentation, for the data she used, for anything, any curiosities? Yes, thank you.
I'm just curious if there were any other hashtags you considered for the data.
No, for the hashtags were only two, World Cup and Brazil 2014. It's already give us 82 million tweets, so we had to work with this. Of course, this research can be done. So in this year, I would like to repeat this, the same project, but choose not a political topic, but health-oriented topic. How is health and medical support improves inside the country if people talk about this? Because everyone starts talking to be in a better shape, to play football or invest more money in healthcare. So I will choose a different hashtags for this. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Thank you also. We have another question here.
Thank you. Will you repeat this year and see what are the differences between the 2014 World Cup and this year's World Cup?
Yeah, I think I will repeat this. First, I thought that it will be only medical topics oriented, but actually all our algorithm is so easy to use. So after you've done it first time, so I think it would be nice to compare results, especially that it's now in Russia, and you know, political topics in Russia is really close terms.
Oh, we know. Trust me. We know in Romania also. So.
Okay. If any other questions? If not, you can also tweet me anytime and contact me on all social networks. We'd be glad to talk to you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.